Live here on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel presented by the JeopardyFan.com. As always, I am Andy Saunders, your moderator, and this is the Tournament of Panelists 2, the fourth and final preliminary panel. We're starting a little bit later, a couple minutes later than normal tonight, but that's okay. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking with us. As always, if you've got questions, or so I should say questions, or even comments, if you want to try to respond to these questions yourselves, I have a YouTube chat. I do take a look at that during the taping. There's also hashtag Jeopardy Live panel on Twitter, so that you can follow along that way as well. And of course, if I like what I see, I'll read it out to the panel. So let's get into the introductions. I'm going to introduce you alphabetically by first name, and then we'll get straight into the panel. In seat number 1 tonight for this tournament of panelists, welcome back to hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, Josh Frumkin.
Thanks, Andy. Hey, guys.
Okay, our in chair number 2, for his first time here on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, but he is a big supporter of the show, one of our Patreon supporters. Welcome to hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, Matt Carberry.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate the opportunity and the invitation.
In seat number 3, we have Melanie Tannenbaum Hepler. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming back to hashtag Jeopardy Live panel.
Hi, thanks for having me. This is always fun.
Seat number 4, welcome back to Pat Kavanaugh. Thanks for joining us on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel.
Thank you, Andy. Happy to be here.
And last, certainly not least, welcome back to hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, Sean Cauley.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Okay, so actually one thing before we get into the 7 questions I have for all of you, I do have one thing. Because it is your first time here on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, Matt, there's something I like to ask people who come on here for the first time. It's not, what did you have for lunch? Don't worry, but I am curious to know, as I'm pretty sure most of you, the rest of you, have answered this question at some point on the panel before. But Matt, how did you become a Jeopardy fan?
The Sarah Edwards question, if I recall correctly. And,
that's correct, yes.
And so I watched the show sporadically growing up. It premiered when I was at the young age of 3. And throughout various stints of sometimes television, not having television, throughout my earlier adult life, got away from it. But it was just a little over 3 years ago that I had a chance to reconnect with someone I knew back at Cornell University, who had appeared on the show just about 7 years now, in fall of 2010, and that was right. That was right as the repeats of the Battle of the Decades were airing. So that rekindled my interest in the show, and getting to see all of those great players go at it over those 5 weeks of the 2014 hiatus. That really got me back into it, and just slowly, as season 31 began, I started live tweeting games under hashtag Jeopardy, and it kind of snowballed from there. Coming into contact with you, Andy, and your site, as well as JBoard, and it's just been great to be able to interact in this way with such a great community, and certainly it's been even more this past summer. Playing the Summer Hiatus Challenge for the second time, and on JBoard, and actually getting a category in. I'm sure I practically handed you 45 points on a silver platter there with that one. But so it's been a great ride the last 3 years, and I'm looking forward to it continuing as we head into season 34, and also here tonight.
Awesome. And that's a great story, and thanks for sharing that. Now, actually, I lied. There's one more question that's come up on the YouTube chat. It's for you, Pat Kavanaugh. It's from Christopher Deneau, and he's like, ask Pat about her new socks. So, oh, those look like llama socks.
They are llama socks. Old Navy, llama socks.
Very nice.
Also
very
got
nice.
some llama pajama pants.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice. Okay, so now that we've gotten those out of the way, let's get into tonight's usual rotation of questions. As always, here on the tournament panelists, my questions, there are going to be 7 of them. One of which, of course, always is the photo caption, which I always enjoy hearing the answers to. And so you'll go in order, and if you by all means, once everyone's given an answer, just feel free to jump in with anything else if you'd like. So, our first question tonight, it's actually inspired by something that happened last week during one of the teachers tournament reruns. Pinehurst number 2 got got wind of the fact that their famed golf course in North Carolina was the subject of one of the clues, because it came up in one of the teachers tournament quarterfinals, and they actually offered Eduardo a free round of golf at Pinehurst number 2, as per their own press release. So, inspired by that, what quote unquote prize from a company name checked in a clue would you have liked to get? So for those of you who have been on the show, you can look at possibly, out of the questions that you did get right, or maybe not, and in Matt's case, I guess you can go with what in general would you like to see, maybe handed out randomly from some brand as a result of Jeopardy. So yeah, Josh goes first, then Matt, Melanie, Pat, and Sean.
Let's see. Well, I name checked a couple. I don't think I don't remember having a brand. I think I had something on Twinkies, but I don't want anything to do with that. I know I name checked Rotten Tomatoes and the company that I was working for in interview stories. But I mean, given that, if I had known that this was a thing, I think one of my first game was a lock game. I would have just started answering, low dollar questions wrong on purpose. This was the first Supreme Court justice, and I would just say, what is Dunkin' Donuts or what? I mean, how could you not just try? I mean, so what would I want most? I mean, certainly Major League Baseball has been, has been a category many times. So any sort of, season tickets or anything like that, I would completely sell my soul on live TV or national TV to get something like that.
What about you, Matt?
Well, I think that if there was any sort of clue that referenced a goose, or even maybe more generally an animal sound in any sort of way, I might, maybe even not necessarily in the same situation as Josh, might tube the clue and just say, what is Wawa, which is a sandwich chain here in the Philadelphia area. And that would be, if I could, I tend to eat from there a lot. I rack up plenty of rewards spending my money there, but I would certainly take the opportunity to get some freebies from that fine corporation.
Okay, how about you, Melanie?
So first, I just gotta say, my husband is from Pottstown, so I have been very much introduced to the obsession with Wawa in Pennsylvania. I've learned. I've been taught. So that was kind of funny. I will stay away from the obvious Ninja Turtle answer. And I don't know, probably my story was about my husband making me a donut bouquet for Valentine's Day. So again, if Dunkin' Donuts wanted to give me a lifetime supply, I wouldn't say no. And I also got a special moment of pride as a Long Islander by birth, being able to answer Billy Joel correctly. So some Billy Joel tickets would be pretty sweet too. That would be pretty awesome. Those are probably my few moments that would be cool to get something out of.
As a fellow native Long Islander, I wouldn't turn those down either.
What?
As a fellow native Long Islander, I would not turn those down either.
Yeah. I was so happy I got to buzz in for that. I as a Tough Mudder person, I've done a bunch of Tough Mudders, and I was pissed I got locked out on Wounded Warrior Project because I've literally done an obstacle called Wounded Warrior Carry like a dozen times, part of it because it's sponsored. But Billy Joel, I was glad I was able to like get in on. That was
Nice. What about you, Pat?
Well, there weren't any questions that I answered that particularly lend themselves to, but sort of the dagger in my game was one of my competitors finding a daily double on clue 29 of Double Jeopardy. And the answer to that was Prague. I'm sorry, the question to that is what was Prague? And had I received that, I think it would have been totally awesome if the Prague Tourism Board had seen their way to giving travel. Seems only fair.
Yeah, that does seem only fair. But, yeah. And Sean, how about you?
Well, I am a giant concert nerd, and I actually think being a concert nerd and bringing it up in my audition with Maggie is one of the things that got me booked on the show. But one of the clues in my game that I did get, it was in a category called R&R, where everything was two-word answers, both starting with R. And they showed a picture of the Colorado concert venue, Red Rocks, the amphitheater, where U2 did their live video in 1983, and John Tesh did an album. I don't know. There've been a lot of famous Red Rocks things, but if anybody wanted to see free to give me a all expenses paid round trip to see concert of my choice at Red Rocks, I think that's a bucket list item.
So no hoping that Vancouver might take pity on you, Sean?
No, I'm not sure I'm ready to set foot in Vancouver yet. So it seems beautiful, but I don't know if I can handle going.
Fair enough. So, any other thoughts on this one, or should I move on to question number 2?
It reminds me that the oh, sorry, go ahead, Melanie, please. Go ahead, go for it. Oh, so no, I was just saying that the Sean's thing, I lost another question about IBM, and we had I think in between when it taped and when it aired, I was at a training at work, and I walked into the room, and it was specifically about Think, their slogan. And I walked into the room, and there were like 30 IBM laptops set up, all with Think on the screen. I like froze. I had like a minor panic attack, and I've never bought an IBM product since. So.
No, I'm in a fantasy football league with some friends, and a lot of times the team names tend to be insults thrown at the other friends. And one of the guys in the group last year called his team "What is Vancouver?" and his avatar was a picture of Philip II. So that was fun to look at for a whole football season.
No, you were going to say something, Melanie?
Oh, I was just saying I would happily take all of these things.
Yeah.
Wawa, trip to Prague, all of them. I'll take it.
Yeah, along the lines of both Vancouver and Prague, I remember playing from the couch. I think it was a category in capitals, and there was one clue where it was Nova Scotia, and being as I've been to Halifax a couple times this year and love the city, I just was like, what is Halifax? And then the next clue, I was totally not paying attention. I'm like, oh, I knew it, but I got to clam that one. So that's another one. If it came up, anything Nova Scotia related would definitely I'd go for something like that.
Nice. So let's move on to our next question here. Matt, you'll get the opportunity to answer this one first, and then we'll go through in that order, and then Josh will finish up. So on Ken Jennings' run on Jeopardy, he reached a point where he literally ran out of things to talk about with Alex. And the topic of conversation ended up being Ken asking Alex a question. So my question for all of you, pretend that you somehow managed to get a Ken Jennings-like run on Jeopardy. What one question would you ask Alex Trebek on the actual show if you had the opportunity to?
Well, of course, when about 3 years ago, we briefly, for about a 4-week period, we saw Alex bring back the mustache that he shaved off in 2001. I would ask him When are you going to bring back that sweet 70s hairdo that you had when you were the host of High Rollers?
Yeah.
Nice. What would you ask Alex, Melanie?
So we were just like maybe a year or so ago binging through X-Files, like all the old X-Files, and lo and behold, I was pretty surprised to see Trebek make a cameo in one of the episodes. That was pretty fun. And so I would probably ask him if he got to meet the cast of X-Files while he was filming that, and if so, what he really thought about them. I don't know that he could answer that on TV, honestly, but it would be cool to like ask what his experience on the X-Files was, because I was very surprised to see him there, and it was pretty funny, I thought.
Yeah, that experience was actually it was mentioned in an interview segment several years ago. I think there was some contestant said she was part of I think it was an internet abbey, as she called it. That interview was overshadowed by the very next one in which there was the story about the player who had I believe starved her pet billy goat ate a box of Quikrete, and Trebek said, was it a 60-pound or an 80-pound bag? And the contestant just goes back and says, Alex, you're being insensitive. So the X-Files, yeah. So he did talk about the X-Files a little bit, but it was overshadowed by one of the great interview segments that has certainly in recent years ever occurred on the show.
I think if they ever had a category on Jeopardy for past interview story content, you could like run it easily. This is probably like the most impressive memory for contestants. I think I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I should probably set aside some more of that memory for you know things that are actually come up on the board during the show.
Well, if you can remember that super well, it means you can remember other stuff super well. That's what I like to think. Like if you could do it for that, it just means you have a really good memory.
One thing I remember, David Duchovny back many, many years ago was on Celebrity Jeopardy when he was actually starring as Fox Mulder. And I remember Alex cracking the joke, or, the joke came up during the interview that if ABC had picked up the show instead of Fox, that the character might have been named ABC Mulder.
So clever.
So, Pat, what would you ask Alex?
I would say, Alex, what are you reading right now? Ooh. Tell me about what you're reading, and then tell me how it's going to help your Jeopardy game.
Interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. How about you, Sean?
I think I'd have to go for making him as nervous as he makes most of us. And I remember the story when he, very unfortunately, someone broke into his hotel room and stole some jewelry and things from his room. When he was on the news, giving the interview about it, he just casually said, "I threw on my underwear and I chased the woman down the hall." So, is the sleeping in the buff a one-time thing, or is it is that his lifestyle?
Do you want to know the answer? Though?
And did we need to know that?
Yeah.
Or you could always just go with boxers or briefs, like classic question.
And
Josh,
what would you ask?
I know he's a huge movie buff, and he and I talked a little bit about movie. I mean, one of my first interview thing was about movies. I would want to know because I'm a big bad movie buff. I know he's probably famous. His favorite movie is How Green Was My Valley. I want to know what's his favorite bad movie, because I'm a huge bad movie buff. Like everybody's got like a bad movie that they love to watch. Like I would love to know what's the like total popcorn crap that he probably pretends not to watch, that he that he can't turn away from when he's flipping channels or something.
I'd love to find out that he has a collection of spoons and that he goes to like annual viewings of The Room. Like I would love to find that out.
I just want like Alex Trebek Starship Trooper buff or something like that. Yeah.
He binge watches Jersey Shore on the weekends.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he wishes he were the one who punched out Snooki that one time.
He's all about that gym tan laundry.
What is the situation?
Oh boy. Okay. So some comments that we're seeing on from various people who are watching right now. One comment on the general composition of the panel from Fred Vaughn saying "Saved murderers row for last." From the YouTube chat, Ken Hirsch has said, I guess in terms of Fox Mulder / the ABC Mulder thing, network namesakes for 600, please. And to the chasing the robber, definitely too much information. So it is now time for our caption competition here, our quasi competition. So hopefully you guys, let's see, you guys will be able to see this photograph that's come up. I know it's a little bit small, but basically it's a stock photograph of 5 scientists looking at a chicken. A hen, I think, because it's got some eggs there that have just been laid. Half a dozen. But you've got 5 scientists looking at it. So the object is to come up with a caption for this photograph. I'm going to talk a little bit more because it looks like you guys could needed a little bit of extra time.
God, I have to go first for this one, don't I?
Yeah, you have to go first for this one, Melanie.
Oh.
So while you're coming up with your captions, I'm just going to let everyone know that the final panel for this will be taking place next Monday at 9:05 p.m. Eastern, and the voting phase will be starting tomorrow at noon Eastern, and will go to Sunday at noon Eastern. What will happen? There have been 17 people who have taken part in the preliminary panels. From that, all 17 will go into a voting phase. You can vote for up to 5. Anyone can vote for up to 5. And the top 5 vote getters will be invited to take part in the final panel. Anyone who takes part in the final panel will be awarded the title of Tournament of Panelists Champion, a co-champion. So there will be 5 co-champions, and it will be a Google Forms vote. So it will be 1 vote per Google account, and again, it'll run from Thursday at noon Eastern to Sunday at noon Eastern, so that I have the opportunity to inform the winners that they have actually managed to win the vote and to hopefully have their schedule available. And if somebody does win the top 5 and isn't available, an alternate will be selected to take part in the final panel as well. So, and that will be the 6th highest vote getter. Okay, so now that I've explained that, time to come up with your captions. Melanie, you're first.
All right. So I'm not very funny. I'm not good at this. Okay. When the voice behind the introduction, I know we know who this is, but just like, give me this. When the voice behind the introductions on Jeopardy was finally revealed, everyone was very surprised to see who it was. That's all I got.
Not bad.
Pretty bad.
So, Pat, what is your caption?
So it's not just in the dictionary that the chicken comes first.
You know, I was trying to think of how to do something that didn't sound dirty, and that was funnier than what I was coming up with.
Okay, Sean, what do you have?
It's a little known fact that Watson was almost not the first non-human Jeopardy contestant.
Oh, very nice. Josh.
Wow. Okay. The scientists are saying, so which of your kids is going to be breakfast?
Ooh. And Matt.
What it really looks like inside the Jeopardy writer's room. The golden eggs, those are the final Jeopardy clues.
Ooh, very nice, very nice. So, actually, about 10 seconds after the picture came up, Ken Hirsch, I think Ken probably would have much rather had this photograph in in his preliminary round, because very quickly he came up with, do you think it can beat Watson? So, yeah, that is the caption competition here. Ooh, I just realized what the next question is. Pat, you get to open, and I think you guys will enjoy this one. I think you guys will all enjoy this one. Our fourth question tonight is create a Jeopardy-themed alcoholic beverage. Pat, you get to go first, then Sean, Josh, Matt, and Melanie. Yeah. A Jeopardy-themed alcoholic beverage. So, a mixed drink, or, it doesn't have to be, but, some sort of Jeopardy-themed alcoholic beverage. This one, I think, has flummoxed our panel a little bit tonight.
I was going to say, I was pretty bummed about having to go first on the caption thing, but at least I got, a little bit of time to, kill in there to try and find an unfunny answer. This is rough, putting you on the spot, Pat.
I think I'm up to it. We'll see. Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe that I would create a variation on a Tom Collins. Let's have the Johnny Gilbert.
Ooh.
Which is served in a tall, thin glass. The alcohol base is the rich, dark rum. Nice, smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Some fresh squeezed lime juice for a little tartness. Johnny's a little tart sometimes. A little lemon lime soda for a little sweetness. And top it all off with a lime garnish.
Very nice, very nice. Sean, what would you do?
Let's see. I'm from bourbon country, so I'm trying to think of a bourbon-based. I would think a Jeopardy old-fashioned. It costs an odd number $100. Even it costs $100 because the clues in the old-fashioned days were $100. So very fine bourbon, Pappy Van Winkle, with some bitters and the bitterness of all the players who lost on a really bad Final Jeopardy beat.
Nice, nice. Josh, what's your idea?
So I think a Ken Ginnings. It's basically just a shot of gin, but you take 74 of them in a row, and you feel great, you feel super successful, and then finally the 75th one just does you in.
Oh my!
By the 74th one, you can't remember the name of H&R Block.
Right, exactly.
I was trying to come up with a way. It's and then you have to pay taxes on it.
Right, you only get to keep 37 of them, which, or whatever. But frankly, if you drank 74 shots of gin, you probably would only get to keep, 37.
I'm trying to think if I don't think I know anyone who could handle.
No, that's a recipe for death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carrie Green wouldn't try to take 74 shots of gin. So.
Well, she might try it.
Okay, Matt, what's your suggestion?
Well, I'm more of a beer guy myself, so I guess I would go with I call it Trebek's Pilsner. You know, it starts off light and lively, but by the time you get to about certainly by the 25th, and now going up to 34 it gets ever more bitter and a little bit more crusty.
Nice. And Melanie.
So does it have to be a good drink?
No.
Something you want to actually.
No.
All right. So I will call it the second podium because that's where I was. So it has to be a little bit self-referential. Second podium. And since it films in California, it'll have a California white wine as the base. So maybe some sort of like Chardonnay in there, you know. And then a splash of blue curacao because all the Jeopardy, everything is blue.
Yep.
So see, I told you wouldn't want to drink it. And then, so we have blue from California. And then we're going to add in some Kahlua, some coffee liqueur, because if there's one thing that everyone I know actually drank all day on Jeopardy, it's coffee. A lot of coffee. And that seems like the most miserable combination of things you could put in your mouth, but there we go. Maybe it would taste bitter from all of that together, and then we can put into that bitters example. I like that logic too. I'm going to steal that. So that one.
Well, sometimes I jump in, and I actually have an answer to this question as well. Like Matt, I can be a beer fan, and I think that I would create a take on a Belgian double, a Belgian double ale, and call it a True Daily Double.
Nice. Well done. Way to show up your panelists, Andy.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
I wish I thought of Daily Dunkel.
To be quite honest, I did. I mean, that being said, I did have like 2 hours to think about this before the panel started. So, because I write the questions and I see the questions and I have time to stew on the questions a bit. So,
I'm really regretting.
You are the Alex Trebek of Jeopardy
Right.
panel.
Yes, clearly.
To pretend you knew all the answers all along.
This guy
Canadian.
I was like, I am regretting agreeing to this because all I'm showing is like, I'm not funny. I can't think on my feet. Not clever at all. Oh, man. Should have just let sleeping dogs lie on this one.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Terrible taste in alcohol. But
Well, you knew enough to know it was bad taste.
I know.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You know, it shows creativity to come up with something like that for sure. So
yeah, let's go with that.
okay, so off in a little bit of a different direction with our fifth question. Sean, you'll get to go first here. So if the show chose to release more behind the scenes stuff, either, more, behind, kind of from the green room videos or maybe from the writer's room or something like that, if the show chose to release more things from behind the scenes of the show, what would you like to see?
I think, because I know I've read about question writing process. I think there was an AV Club article about that a few years ago that kind of got into that already. But I think it'd be about the audition process, the idea of what it is they're looking for in contestants. Because I know I auditioned twice. It was the second one where I lucked out and, I don't know, clicked with Maggie and managed to get onto the show. But the first time it was, I came out of there thinking there were 20 really smart, really engaging people in that room, and I have no idea how they're going to pick 1/3 or 1/7 of them to get onto the show. So, any idea of what it is what that magic thing is besides knowing the stuff and being able to talk that has them think, oh, we're putting them on the short list. That'd be good to know.
Oh my God, like Jeopardy Hard Knocks. This would be amazing.
Okay, Josh, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, also, I think as a former contestant, I think first of all, I'd like to see the people who go out on Twitter and trash everybody to see like the contestants hanging out in the green room and that they're that I swear to God we're like nice genial people who are not like generally total losers because we got super nervous when we were up on stage. But just for pure Schadenfreude, I'd probably like to see other people be as nervous as I was. Like in the green room, like I couldn't eat. I was like losing my voice because I was like so stressed out, like all that. Like I didn't sleep the night before and all that. So I would love to see other people, because undoubtedly people do. I would love to see other people go through that same thing, so I felt better about myself, and so that other people could see like, hey, it's hard. Like it's hard to get up on stage. It's hard to get on the lights, and people are really friendly to each other because they understand, what they're going through.
What about you, Matt? What would you like to see?
I feel like there's got to be some really good B-roll from the Clue crew. I mean, you see those beautiful shots, for example, of Sarah Wickfoss standing atop Pitcairn Island, one of the most remote places in the world. What was it like when they weren't filming those clues? Like, maybe if they were in the one town they have there, trying to make their way, or hiking up or down, or along those lines. We know Alex is going to take a trip with I believe it's 10 lucky winners, a cruise next month. Definitely some B-roll, some of the outtakes along those lines as well.
Nice. Melanie, what would you like to see?
I don't know how popular this would be, because I feel like contestant interviews are everyone's least favorite part to watch, but I really like learning all the like Slumdog Millionaire kind of stories behind how people know things that they know. Like, or if a category comes up and then they say after, like, it's so funny that came up because I had just gone to this place and I had just seen that, or like I literally just watched a movie where that happened 2 weeks ago, or like I learned about this and this thing. I just think it's really funny to see all the ways that people, like, because some of it is rote study, like you prep or you study or you learn stuff your whole life, but a lot of the ways people know stuff is just really random events or coincidences, or just like, I knew this because of this random thing that happened 5 years ago, like by chance. And I always kind of love hearing people's stories about that and like the random ways that they picked up trivia or knowledge or stuff. I think that would be fun to hear more about.
I actually completely agree with you. And yeah, wow, I really like that answer. And I'm probably going to be adding that specific discussion topic into Jeopardy Live panel next season, right after hearing it. So literally that's a question I think I need to ask more people of now. So thank you very much.
Nice work.
So I'm not the only one who would want to know.
Yeah.
No, I remember when I was in high school on the academic team, I would always want to brag. I was at a very competitive high school. I was probably the 7th best player on academic team where 4 people were playing at a time. But I was the pop culture kid, surprising nobody who knows me. But it was every once in a while I'd be like, no, I knew that because I saw the thing with the, and of course there was no time to ever tell that. And I was on a trivia podcast a couple months ago, and it was one where you get to kind of talk your thought process out as you're getting to your answer, and that was kind of fun to, for a change, actually talk about that stuff. And one of the questions in the final round was about what animal is the mascot of the Nashville Predators hockey team. And I'm not a hockey person. I'm from Kentucky. We're not really hockey people, but I lived close enough to Nashville when they got their team. I went to their opening game ever and have all the souvenir stuff, and it was a saber-toothed tiger, and that's how I knew it. So it was fun to be able to tell that story.
I love when we're doing like for Learn Lead or other trivia stuff. The amount that I've picked up just from like, I teach Zumba kids, and with kids, it's only like we do a couple dances, and then there's a lot of like I teach geography. Every week we go to a different country, so I tell them a little bit about the country. We learn about the dance. We learn about the culture. So it's very educational. And the amount of random crap that's come on that I literally talked about with the kids like a couple weeks earlier has been mind-boggling. Like I knew about bodies of water that because I'm like, oh look, Sweden is around all this water, which is why they eat lots of fish there. And now we're going to do a polka. So like, it's bizarre. And everyone would just see like Zumba kids instructor. And it's like, okay, and I'm like, I have a PhD. And that PhD has helped me not once. Zumba kids has helped me like 50 times. I swear.
That's what I always say to people when they're like, how do you get on Jeopardy or whatever? How do you, whatever. And I'd always say that's one of the big things is like open yourself up to experiences, because you're going to learn crap just by like reading things or doing things. Or I mean, I got like landmark categories. I got a daily double on Gorky Park that I knew because I'd been to Moscow. Like I'd been to Moscow. I didn't go to Moscow to learn about trivia or whatever, but like it was like, oh, like that's the answer. Like I've been there, and like you open yourself up to these experiences. Like it's amazing how it helps you with these sort of, and they're fun also. But yeah.
There was a category in the game right before mine that was it was musical numbers, and it was like fill in the blank. They were all songs or bands that had numbers in them, and I was sitting there in the audience like wheezing, laughing for the next, because every single one, all 5 songs had been in one of my class playlists in the past week. I'm not even. I was like. How? Like everyone. Crazy. Anyway.
We still haven't heard Pat's answers to this question yet.
Well, first I want to ask the panel, was anyone else straight up terrified at your audition when they told you that they were videotaping the audition and that like it could be released in the future? I was. I was like, wait, are you kidding me?
I don't even remember. Oh no,
I know. I don't remember either.
I guess because the odds appeared on the local news like later that week or something. A little story.
Yeah. So they said that ever since, you know, I think it was a Kids Week kid who went on a run and everybody loved him, that they've decided that they would hold the audition footage, and you know, if you became really popular, they would release it. And I was like, no!
I know.
Fortunately, that didn't turn into an issue for me. So,
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I saw bits and pieces of when they, the show did a Facebook Live interview with Buzzy Cohen after his run. And I definitely know they spliced in some of his audition footage in that interview.
Yeah. Yes,
it's
true. It's an interest, you know, fans have an interest in it, but.
Well, I know I saw bits of mine because, like I said, they, like the local Bay Area news or whatever, had a whole little fluff story on like, have you ever wanted to be on Jeopardy? Like they had, and they showed like like my mock game was like the main one that they showed, and basically they just got me they've got me repeatedly accidentally saying please or before the categories, and then going like, damn it, crap, whatever. And then like, they voiced over it like, courtesy is not appreciated because they just want you to be as fast as possible. And then it's like cut to me, like a montage.
Yeah.
Here's what's not to do.
I was like, cool, thanks. That's awesome.
Melanie, Jeopardy don't.
Yeah. Yeah, my second audition, the one that got me the call, I was very conscious of the camera at the end of my little interview portion with Maggie, because what she asked was, you know, what's your big hobby? And I mentioned that I like concerts. She said, oh, who do you like? And who do you like to go see? And I named a couple bands. And then she said, who have you never gotten to see that you'd like to? And my answer was, well, I never got to see the Beastie Boys. And since Adam Yauch died, that's never going to happen. And so it's the big gaping hole on my bucket list. And she said, oh yeah, that was really sad. And she said, but you know, you got to fight for your right. And then she just looked at me waiting, and I knew in this hotel, you know, conference room, I was going to have to yell, you know, wearing a blazer and a dress shirt, have to yell, you know, to party right into a camera, and that they were going to have that in Culver City for eternity. I think that was the most, but I was like, if I don't do it, I'm not going to go to Jeopardy. I can see that this is what's going to get me over the top, is my willingness to be crazy. So let's go.
Yeah, I remember they included some of the footage from Cindy Stoll's audition in the video they put out, and I specifically remember her talking about her love of bad movies, and something, I don't remember what the title was, but just eliciting a an effusive response from Maggie, who you could hear off camera, and just I'm sure that certainly helped her get on. Of course, personally, I cannot speak to this question as I have yet to audition, but now I know what to little bit of help as to what to prepare for.
Yeah, word to the wise. They're taping your audition.
Yeah.
In my very first audition, the one I did not get the call from, and I'm not surprised. I knew they would ask what. So by the way, Matt, they always ask what you would do with the money, and of course, everyone's answer is logically going to be like pay off debt and like maybe travel or like pay off a house or like student loans or other like practical things, right? Unless you just walk away with like literally enough to cover travel. But they want to. They don't really care. They just want to know something unique, right? And so when I first auditioned, I had this brilliant idea that I would say something about a pair of Louboutin heels, which I don't own. I'm not even a shoe person. I live in sneakers. Like, I just thought it would be, I don't know why, like, I thought it would be. And I made some cutesy comment about, like, red-soled shoes and, like, this whatever. And then, like, I just got this whole table of blank stares looking at me like they didn't get it. They didn't think it was funny. They didn't think I was adorable. And then I was like, also travel probably.
Yeah, my first audition was the same week that Pat auditioned and got the show. It was in Nashville in 2013, and Robert was running the room. He used to be on the contestant coordinating crew, and it was, I was nervous when I got to the interview part. I did okay on the little mock game, but the interview part, I got tongue tied, and he asked a question: "Do you have a family?" Now, I had been married about a year and a half, almost 2 years. Our first child was on the way, but it was the first time it had ever really been posed to me, meaning, are you the adult in a family? So I was starting to, in my back of my mind, I started to think, oh yeah, no, I've got two sisters. My mom and dad are still around. And then I halfway through getting ready to speak was the whole, oh no, I'm married, and that's what I have to say. And I stumbled right over the answer and thought, that's where I screwed up for sure. That was definitely the I'm not getting on Jeopardy part. So it was standing in the mirror in the hotel room the morning of, when I went 2 years later, I'm thinking, I'm just going to, let's work on being able to talk about stuff. Just don't freak out and talk to them when they ask you questions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So a comment on that from Ken Hirsch on the YouTube chat. Maggie told us to fantasize and not say mundane things like pay off bills.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, this time around, for the one that I did get the call for, I just said two things which are like legit things that I or my husband I wanted to do, and they're not even that expensive. Like, one of them was do a destination mutter, which was like I've done like over 20 something tough mutters and Spartan race, but like we always thought it would be cool, like go somewhere cool and do one that's not just like wherever we happen to live. So I was like, okay, destination mutter. And then I said I wanted to go to Zumba convention, which is like everyone in neon, everyone dancing all the time. Like, I went. Like, I didn't even win enough. I went anyway. Like, it's not like I needed however much winning to go. Like, I went anyway. It was fun. It was awesome. But like, I mean,
I was the first. I was the first person up, and I joked. I only had one audition. I was the first person up, and I joked because I was like, oh, they want us to like don't talk about paying bills or whatever. So I joked about. I'd just been in Charleston. There are these gorgeous houses on the waterfront, Charleston, Rainbow Row, and I joked about how I saw one that was worth $6 million, so I was going to win 600 episodes in a row or something like that and buy this house in Charleston. And then for the rest of the audition, everybody was like, I'm going to start a charity. My mother's really poor. I'm going to pay for her bills, like all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, my God. I just totally screwed myself by joking. And, I guess, yeah.
I mean, they just want to know more about you. And it's like, of course, everyone would pay. That doesn't give any information about you.
Yeah, there was
I had a friend who posted on Facebook something once. It was like, do all these people on game shows just have a ton of money? Like, whenever they're asked what they're going to do with the money, they always say all these ridiculous things. Like, why wouldn't any of them pay bills? And I was like, because they tell you not to say pay bills.
Right. Because nobody wants to hear I'm going to pay bills.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's a fantasy. I think I said that I was going to buy a boat.
Okay.
That's pretty good. Now, my first audition, I know my answer was something like, "Well, we're about to have a baby, so it'll probably go to him one way or another, college fund or something." But then a little while later, there was a lady who was up, and her answer was, "I'm going to take my dad back to Vietnam so he can see and show me the places in Vietnam from when he was there in the war." And I'm like, "Oh, that's an answer." It's like that's an answer.
Did we see her on the show later?
No, we didn't, and I was a little surprised. She seemed like personality-wise like one of the people they would have pulled for, and I think she was a teacher, so she had another shot at it, with the teacher tournament. But I never did see her on the show.
Well, I got on with
no.
so I don't think it has to be my
Can you imagine? Matt brought up the Galapagos cruise or whatever, and Pat said, but like, can you imagine how like burnt Trebek is going to be after like a week or whatever around regular people?
I know.
These like super fans that he's like hanging out with, and he's like stuck on a boat in like the middle of the Pacific Ocean with these people, and it's going to be so.
It's a week of those audience questions from the commercial breaks.
Right. Yeah.
Let's hope.
I already told you where the mustache went 30 times. Can you please stop asking?
Let's hope the boat is fully stocked with Chardonnay.
Yeah. I can't tell you mean things about Wolf Blitzer.
So Andy, do I? Andy, do I get points or demerits for having hijacked your panel and not answered the question?
Well, it's interesting because there really are no points this time around in this tournament of panelists. Though
he's just a chief electoral officer. It remains to the voters to see how they handle that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like how I subtly reminded the audience that I just took control of this panel? I'm kidding.
So there's one more question I've got before we get to the summarize the panel in 140 characters or fewer. And
well, wait, I'm sorry. Did you want to hear my answer to the what would I like to see?
Oh,
I thought it was the audition footage.
I thought it was the audition footage too. No. But yes, go ahead, Pat. Let's hear your answer.
I've got something better. I think this is just a wish list that would never come true, but I would love to watch the process of ruling on either a protest or when the contestants don't protest and just the judges decide that another answer is worthwhile. I would love to see that behind the scenes process. I suspect we never, ever will, but
you never know. It could happen.
That was not nearly as interesting as the long discussion about
there've been a couple of good stories that I've heard through social media. I know the teachers tournament last year, Carberry Chakrabarty she had something where she was like, no, my family's from India. I know the right way to say this, and the way I pronounced it was correct. And they wound up calling a local Indian restaurant for the answer, to get somebody to weigh in DC.
The capital of Bangladesh, and that's where her ancestry is from.
Right? Yeah.
So it's to that end, back in the the Jeopardy book from 1990, that book recounts a story of there was an issue with a clue regarding some sort of U.S. law, and when they were taping, the only courthouse they had to call the circuit court in Hawaii to because that was the only because they were it was like it was like a Friday show, and they were taping at like 4:30 Pacific, and anything local or like anything in the Pacific time had already closed, and so they had to call Hawaii to get the answer.
Wow.
I remember hearing that.
So from Chris Deneau watching on the YouTube and on the YouTube chat, he'd want to know how unabashedly the question writers use Wikipedia.
There's a way we could probably test that. We'll have to get to a lot of Wikipedia pages and just subtly add in like giveaways that we'll know You know.
Like something along the lines of the War of the League of Zanderberg or something like that?
Or like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. It's funny that Guelph has come up in the last 20 clues we've looked at.
It's funny. I years and years ago contributed one or two, trivia things to IMDb where you can, contribute movie trivia. And I went to the movies, that little slideshow. Of course, now they have the video thing, but they used to have the little slideshow, and there'd be some movie trivia and word scrambles and things like that. And did you know piece of trivia came up that was word for word my awkwardly worded, I wish I could take it back and redo it version of a piece of trivia about the movie Almost Famous. And I was like, no, that's mine. They just took my internet post.
We should do that though.
Yeah.
Just like have our way with some Wikipedia pages,
just...
and then like see if anything's on, or even better, if contestants give wrong answers based on like, you were cramming on Wikipedia, weren't you?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we can move on to the final question here before we move on to summarizing the panel in a tweet. So, what, in your opinion, is the best representation of the show in popular culture, but the show being obviously Jeopardy? So, Josh, you come back around, you go first, then Matt, Melanie, Pat, and Sean.
Oh, I get to go first, which means I get to go with Cheers. Because, like, to Cliff Clavin something has become such a part of the lexicon, whether it's we joke about it when we go out to pub trivia or I think it's so iconic. Obviously I can think of others, including it was just on Glow, on an episode of Glow, in the background was Jeopardy, but I mean Cheers is the classic, the Cliff Clavin moment. Can't beat that.
Nice Matt, what about you?
Being a big sports fan, and with the proliferation of instant replay over the last 20 years, particularly, the fact that we quite often, or even when the referees huddle, we quite often will hear the think music played over the stadium or field loudspeakers. And of course, certainly over the last 3 years now, I start thinking, and the Merv Griffin estate bangs another royalty check. So that's one particular one that stands out to me.
Nice. Melanie, what about you?
Okay, I won't go with the obvious like SNL. But I don't know that this is the best, but the one that just sticks out is that I was just binge watching Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which I don't even think is that great of a show, but I was watching it anyway. And they had one of the mole, I don't know if you guys watched it, but one of the mole women, like they were talking about how she was like soaking up all the fame of like having been a rescued mole woman, and how she was like appearing everywhere to do it. And then it flashed to a scene of her like saying like, "Hi, my name is Cindy. Like I'm one of these mole women," for like giving I guess like a video clue about the fact that she was a mole woman like on the show. I don't know.
I just watched that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it took me so by surprise, and it was just like, I'm one of these animal women from Indiana, or what, I don't remember what it was. I screenshotted it on my phone because I was super pumped. But I thought, I don't know if it's the best representation, but I thought it was kind of funny because it just took me by surprise while I was watching TV. So,
Pat, what about you?
Okay, I too will avoid the obvious Turd Ferguson reference and say that although it's probably much less widely known, I always get a little zing out of doing particularly well on a Sporkle quiz and getting the snark. Didn't I see you on Jeopardy once? Yes, you did. Once only.
it, by the way, it's in my phone. Me and the other Indiana blank women were named after this burrowing rodent.
That's
great.
I'm not caught up. That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one, and a good recent one too. Well, and Sean.
Well, I will say the one that bugs me the most, because I just happened to watch this movie for the first time in years a couple months ago, is White Man Can't Jump, where Rosie Perez's character has dreamed to go on Jeopardy, and they get her on by like bribing a security guard to get her on the lot, and somehow that gets her on the show. And I'm like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. So it just drove me nuts. And really, I'm like, I like the Jeopardy scenes. I like Alex Trebek being in the movie, but come on, that's crazy. But I think I got to agree with Josh that the Cheers is just the best sort of presentation of, this is something that people really strive toward. They want to be on. They want to show off what they know and can do. And Cliff Clavin's particular mistake became, slang in the Jeopardy world, I think is a testament to even the people who have never seen it or are too young to have seen it know what it means. I think it just is really something.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. And I think Chris was waiting to in the wings almost to see what you guys were going to answer, because he has suggested Groundhog Day. Of course, what are the Finger Lakes? What is Titicaca? What is the Rhone? The bodies of water category that gets repeated. And
that does remind me of another favorite, was the Seinfeld episode where George got smart because he was dating a woman with mono, so he couldn't have sex with her, but he didn't have to worry about trying to have sex with her. So his brain opened up all the other parts of his brain that weren't focused on sex. And he's watching Jeopardy and answering a ton of questions, and Jerry just looks at him and says, "Is this a repeat?" This was no other way he could have known it. I've always loved that. So
I have to say, to not answer your question, to go back and reverse answer your question, the one thing about portrayals of Jeopardy in pop culture that drive me randomly just over the top batty, and I don't know why, it shouldn't bother me, but like when they use like $100 or $500 in like tons of articles where it's like, I'll take this for $500. I'm like, that's not a thing anymore.
Paging Ben Ingram.
Since 2001.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's interesting. I actually have a story about that. One of my friends is a writer, and she had put in a Jeopardy reference into one of her stories, and I was actually upset at a different friend who had made that exact incorrect reference. I'll take such and such for 100, please, Alex. And I posted on my Facebook, look, please, it's, that 100, 500 thing, it doesn't work anymore. That's 2001. And this writer friend of mine, completely unrelatedly, let me know like 2 days later, thank you very much for saying that, Andy. It saved me from making a mistake in my writing. So that kind of felt good to have at least been helpful in avoiding that sort of mistake in one more case.
Andy Saunders, vaunted fact checker.
Oh boy.
Winning hearts and minds one at a time.
Yeah. So another comment from Fred Vaughn. He's very much in favor of White Men Can't Jump. His other comment, though, no Weird Al love, though.
Oh, man!
That's a miss by us.
I used that as a cool-down song in all my classes for like 3 weeks after my episode aired.
Well, I left that out because it was Art Fleming era, but that was, it was pre-Trebek. So.
No joke. The last line on my resume says, "Ask me what I have in common with Weird Al."
Nice.
It was kind of sad though, because I was trying to be jokey and have fun with it, and like, because it's like at the end of the class we do the stretch, and so we just played it. We're doing I lost it. But then it gets into that part where it's like you disappointed your whole family. You're a complete loser, and I would always feel the need to be like, guys, I don't feel that bad about it. Like, please don't worry about me. I just think the song is funny. Like, don't take this part. I would always feel the need to like console them. Like, I'm not that upset. It's okay.
The day
you brought shame and disgrace on your family name for generations to come.
I would be like, it's a little much, but like the rest of the song.
Really, you had your chance and you blew it?
The day after I lost, one of my friends posted it on a comment on my whatever post about having lost or something, and she said she'd been waiting for 3 months or whatever ever since I had announced that I was going to be on the show. She had been waiting to post that video on my Facebook status. So it's a little, I was like, oh, ha ha, that's great. Thank you so much.
Okay, so on that note, it is now time for each of our panelists to summarize tonight's panel in a tweet of 140 characters or fewer. Matt, you get to go first, then Melanie, Pat, Sean, and Josh.
Hashtag Jeopardy live panel. As elsewhere in my life, my first time was fun with some unexpected twists and turns.
All right, is it me?
Yep, your turn, Melanie.
I even put this in Twitter, so I know it's less than 140 characters. Game show contestants don't have bills. I can't mix a drink. Slumdog Millionaire stories are fun. Matt has a crazy memory. Pat is Andy now.
Oh my. Okay, Pat, how are you going to try to upstage that one?
Hashtag Jeopardy live panel. All-star panel sails out of orbit.
Okay, Sean.
Hashtag Jeopardy live panel. A crazy trek from Jeopardy cocktails to naked Trebek.
Okay.
Right? Did it? It did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. Yep, it did.
He was a poet. I think he knew it though.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was on. It was. I lucked into it, but yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I lucked into the rhyme, but I was aware of it before I said it. So.
And Josh.
I'm typing it as we speak. So I said Jeopardy live panel arena. 5 enter. As many as 5 leave. Vote for all of us. Link to come tomorrow.
Nice.
There is the temptation to just go, full on Twitter and just be like, Pat Kavanaugh can't answer a Jeopardy live panel question without hijacking the entire panel stat or something, or something like that.
Attention, more Pat Kavanaugh.
All of my answers are the best and the smartest and the greatest.
So, as alluded to by Josh in his last tweet there, so voting for the finalists opens at noon Eastern tomorrow. That is Thursday, September the 7th. It will go until Sunday, September the 10th at noon Eastern. 72 hours of voting. Patreon supporters, as like the Andy Awards, do receive extra voting power, so their votes will count for more. So keep that in mind. And yes, the top 5 vote getters will return to the final panel on next Monday evening at 9:05 p.m. Eastern. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me here on hashtag Jeopardy live panel tonight. One more comment from Chris Deneau regarding the Weird Al song. I think we've all had to bear with that song for the rest of our lives.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And,
not quite yet.
And, one more beer suggestion from Fred Vaughn, or a drink suggestion, I should say. He's called it the Trebek and a Tan. He has suggested Guinness and a good craft wheat beer, not necessarily from Wisconsin, but it couldn't hurt. And to that, as someone who likes most stouts but does not particularly like Guinness that much, I would say you could probably mix a good stout with a good wheat beer and have a very similar result. So on that note, thank you guys for joining me tonight. Good luck in the voting. Make sure you get as many of your friends as possible to vote for you. So okay, so here are your credits. Thank you very much for tuning in, for taking part. I'll see you soon on hashtag Jeopardy Live panel. Have a good night.
Thanks.